Today's episode is sponsored by Anchor. My cousin recommended this app to me, and I thought this was an app about boats or anchors for sale or something, but Anchor is a completely free and easy way to start your own podcast. All of the tools are laid out for you, from recording to editing to even adding voice messages from listeners. You can also podcast from your phone or computer. Wait, there's more. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it could be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more services. No tedious individual uploading and sharing. And the best part, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm. Hello everyone, my name is Frank Anthony and welcome to Let Me Be Frank. So this is episode 7, lucky number 7 now. And before I get into the topic, I just want to acknowledge, you may have noticed there's no featured special guest in the title, and that's because this episode will be hosted for the first time by me, myself, and I. So that should be very interesting, and we'll see how this goes. Maybe a little bit shorter without a guest, or going forward in general. We'll see how that goes. Keep you guys updated on that. Also, before I get into the topic too, I just have to vent about something. My printer broke, and that I know people are like, what is he talking about? But it's so frustrating. Yesterday I spent a couple hours trying to fix it, and today I spent another 3 hours trying to fix it. And it's only honestly important because I have this little business. Well, I have a lot of side businesses, but that stays on the podcast. And and this particular one is doing pretty well, but I need to constantly print out shipping labels to ship things out. And with my printer busted, it just is not, it's not doing me any favors, which means I'm not making any money. And that's sad. So I just put so much time into this, and I've just come so close to only taking a hammer to it, because it's just a frustrating thing. But I know I need to just breathe and keep swimming and not let this technology ironically bog me down. Technology is supposed to make things easier, and it's just not in this situation. But anyway, moving on to today's topic. This was inspired by, so my friend Steph, she has a new podcast called Primal Alignment. She was a guest, I want to say on episode 4, and she was a guest. We talked about eating disorders, and her podcast focuses on the carnivore diet and certain and disordered eating and a lot of things related to those topics. I would definitely check it out. It's on Anchor, and it might also be on Spotify. I may have seen it on there as well, but it's definitely on Anchor, which is the same app that mine is also on. And so check it out. She has an Instagram that's Primal Alignment as well. That's going to be her main social, and it has a link to the podcast there. So you could check that out. No, not hashtag. That @ symbol. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's the @primal_alignment. I want to say that's the social. I hope I got that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. So today's topic was actually inspired by that podcast. She has episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays, and for now mine are Fridays. That may change, just on a side note. But today's episode she had was the things that she was talking about. It started making me think about this topic that I can really relate to, and that I figured, hey, let's talk about it. And you may have seen it in the title, and it's peer pressure in eating. With peer pressured eating, I just think about my life as a whole, when I was a kid all the way till now, And I realized most of my life, I have never really eaten the way that I want to. And I never really thought about, oh, like, well, why? Because, of course, you would, I would say that it's my fault for not eating a certain way, and I definitely take some blame with that. But I also noticed there was some outside environmental factors that may have caused me also not to eat this way. And I'm not necessarily talking about like, oh, well, healthy food is so expensive. I'm not talking about that. More so, I'm talking about, and this isn't to put anyone on blast or make anyone feel bad. I just noticed that because I care about these people, they actually affected my eating habits in some way. And I've talked about this maybe slightly in that episode with Steph, but I noticed that family and friends, and I'm going to also go into online, are some reasons why I also haven't been eating the way that I've wanted to eat. So I guess we can start with family first. We'll start there. And so I mean, growing up, when you're a kid, you don't really have a choice on what you're eating necessarily. Like, depending on who your family is, you're getting served something and you're going to eat it, or you're going to go to bed hungry pretty much. And I know my mom and people in older generations, older than millennial generations, they grew up where they had to stay at that dinner table or until that food was gone off of their plate. And I also started thinking about, there was always that one kid. I was gonna say certain kids, but there was always that one kid in the friend group, maybe, that like the rest of you will have like cake and ice cream at the birthday party, but that kid is not allowed to eat that stuff. They can't like eat the sugar, they can't drink soda, and you're like mortified for that kid, and you try to sneak them some at the party because it's like, oh, God bless you, like we need to feed you with this stuff. But the more I think about it, so what I'm pretty much saying is that when I was a kid, I pretty much was able to eat anything that I wanted, and I was also a very picky eater. So I want to say when I was 8 years old, I just ate grilled cheese sandwiches every single meal, almost probably. I just very poor American diet, pretty much. And I actually, the more I think about it now, I guess you could say I'm a little envious of the kid that may have had restrictions because, and I don't think those parents are necessarily wrong in those situations, because as you get older, that's something I'd almost think, because they were trying to give you this healthy diet so that you'd have a healthy body and continue to have a healthy life. Because I wasn't even restricted with my diet, and yet I still developed eating disorder behavior and probably an eating disorder, which I was never diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I know I had one, and that I possibly do still have one, because it could take a lifetime to recover from an eating disorder in general. I know, though, at least I still showed eating disorder behaviors, regardless of not whether or not being restricted or not. And also with growing up and eating, so I love my grandma to death. God rest her soul. She was very big on, oh, the kids and the grandkids have to eat, manja manja. And I know there was moments where I felt like I was eating more than I wanted to. I may have been satisfied, like not stuffed, but full. And sometimes I wasn't finishing all the food on the plate, but I was almost trained in a way to, I had to clean the plate. I had to overeat in a way. And like I said, I'm not just blaming the outside factors, but as a kid, I think it's a little bit harder to be like, you don't want to, like, I guess, disrespect your elders in a way. That's how I think I felt, and I didn't want to just be like, no, F you. It was more just like, I'm going to eat the food and deal with the consequences later, I guess, health wise. And also with growing up and eating, so I love my grandma to death. God rest her soul. She was very big on, oh, the kids and the grandkids have to eat, manja, manja. And I know there was moments where I felt like I was eating more than I wanted to. I may have been satisfied, like not stuffed, but full. And sometimes I wasn't finishing all the food on the plate, but I was almost trained in a way to I had to clean the plate. I had to overeat in a way. And like I said, I'm not just blaming the outside factors, but as a kid, I think it's a little bit harder to be like you don't want to, like, I guess disrespect your elders in a way. That's how I think I felt, and I didn't want to just be like, no, f you. It was more just like I'm gonna eat the food and deal with the consequences later, I guess, health wise. And then when my uncle had passed, we all were starting to gain weight. We weren't really thinking about that type of stuff, like when it came to diet and everything. And then when I gained a ton of weight between the bullying and the school, I had family members be like, "Oh, you like you're kind of big now." And I still won't say I don't think I said which family member did this. I don't want to say because I don't want to put them on blast, but I was gifted workout DVDs at one point just because of how big I got. And I did use them and everything, and I went on and I did lose weight after, those and whatever, like using the tapes and then also coming up with my own workouts related to dance. But overall, what I'm trying to say is that I, in a way, was pushed to eat certain things and they weren't healthy things. Then I faced the consequences of weight gain, and then it was like that wasn't good enough either. So I had to lose the weight to be almost like accepted. Things are way different now, of course. I'm just saying I felt like that's kind of how my childhood was a little bit. Before I get more into this, I think we're going to take a quick commercial break, so we will be right back. And we are back. Well, I guess I'm back. I'm so used to having a guest on the show that usually me and that person are back, but I guess I'm gonna still say we're. So yeah. And we're back. So I'll get into Friends next. And like I said, once again, not trying to bash anyone. It's just something that I noticed that had affected me, and it affected the way that I ate because I cared a little too much what people thought, and I tried to push against it a little bit, but I didn't try hard enough. I guess I can admit that I could have fought more to eat the healthier way that I want to eat, but that part of me still wasn't ready to eat 100% the way that I want to eat mentally. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there was just some doubt in the back of my head, and that's why I fed into temptations more and peer pressure, but who knows. So with Friends, one quote that usually would come up, I would try to be good certain days, like if we were all eating together, and usually when you're with friends, sometimes it's going out to eat, it's getting delivery, it's not usually those cooked meals like sometimes you'd have with families or that you would do for yourself after going grocery shopping or whatever. You would kind of, with friends, you'd kind of do something different than the typical thing that you normally do. And I know one quote that would be said a lot is like, you only live once, and so like just eat whatever. And I would fall into that sometimes, and then sometimes I would try to fight against it because I just kept having this battle of half of me wanted to just eat whatever and not really care about the consequences, and then the other half of me knew how detrimental that was, not to my physical health but to my mental health related to eating disorders, because an eating disorder is a mental health illness. So, and that's what I think people forgot about, or maybe just because I didn't talk about it really to people, they just didn't really think about it because it's not something that most of them are experiencing themselves. So it's not like they have to, we think differently on that matter. I have obsessed over certain ways that I ate, and I've obsessed over. So, for example, actually, kind of a good example for today, honestly, I ordered some food from Five Guys. Do I want to eat that stuff all the time? No, I don't want to eat like this, but I do it anyway. It's more convenient, so I just do it. And I definitely ate too much, and I don't feel good from it. And I now that was like 3 4 hours ago, and I'm still thinking about it, and I'll still think about it when I go to bed, and I weigh myself every morning, and I'll still think about it tomorrow morning, especially if the number went up. If the number went down, I'll be relieved, but I know if I go up in weight, it's just all that I'm gonna think about, because I'm gonna be like, oh my god, that, like, now I'm facing the consequence, and then it's gonna start leading to different thoughts like I might have to work out harder, and it's this vicious cycle that is connected to an eating disorder in general. Luckily, I don't get peer pressured into much because when you think about it, well, if you know me, I should say, I don't drink and I don't smoke weed or cigarettes, or I'm pretty straight edge for the most part, but food is definitely my vice, my weakness. Out of all those, that's something that it doesn't seem like a big deal, like, oh, like he ate those french fries, or he ate that extra hamburger. Like, it's not a big deal to the average person, but for someone that's going through what I'm going through, or for people that are really committed to the diets that they want to be on because they know it's what's going to make them feel better, not just healthier physically, but like I said, make them feel better mentally. They know the importance of not falling off of the wagon. And I guess when I eat the way I don't want to, it feels like I'm falling off of that imaginary wagon, and I'm just dragging myself on the ground. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, and this is called Let Me Be Frank, which is related to being open and honest. I guess what I'm trying to get at, and I'm just going to be honest, I just don't want people to pressure me into doing things that they know I don't want to do, pretty much. Like, if you ask me, "Oh, Frank, do you want to get this from Wendy's or something?" And I'm really trying not to eat fast food. I've gone points in my life where I haven't eaten any fast food, and I feel so amazing. Of course, during COVID, it's a little bit more difficult, but I definitely could still, if I really, really wanted to put the work to it, I could avoid fast food if I really wanted to. But like I said, that's just a head battle that I have to work through. But if you know I really don't want to do that, but you're like just pushing that or snacks on me regardless, I just want you to stop doing that, please, because it's just not doing any better for me. And maybe it's because those people aren't on diets themselves, but it's just it takes a toll on my health personally. And I'm going to mention Steph again because we've there's been a few times we've gone out to eat together, or we've been at the same events, like a cookout or something, and I want to recognize her because I'm actually, because this wasn't, I wouldn't consider this necessarily disordered behavior. I think this was a strong moment for her. And we would be at these certain things, and people like cake would come out or something, and cake is just not, it's not beneficial for your health. Like, it's sugar, it's crap at the end. And and if you really want to have a piece, have one. But Steph wasn't, that wasn't part of her diet. And like I said, not like a disordered diet, but this was when she was on one of like the healthier diets, like paleo or keto. It was one of those she was on at the time. And when someone asked her if she wanted cake, she said no thank you. And they tried to push it a couple more times. And I just wanted, I guess, to recognize that I'm proud of her for standing her ground, because it's something that I don't think I was doing myself. I would just be like, fine, whatever. But at the same time, I guess I just want to let people know, like, if people tell you no, no matter what it is, just try to respect that as best as you can, because they might want it kind of a little bit, but they're really trying to have self-control. And some people have issues with that self-control when it comes to food, and I'm one of those people. Like, I will pig out, I will eat crap, and I will feel awful and fixated on it for hours, days, weeks. I've thought about things from years ago. Like, it's a bad illness. So I just, yeah, that's my little spiel on that. And I think I'm going to take another quick commercial break, and I'm going to get into a little bit of how there was some online peer pressuring. So we will be right back. And we are back. Yeah, I'm going to stick with we. It sounds better. So I talked about certain people that may have affected just me feeling a little pressured, but now I'm going to get into a big one, not just for me, but I think for many people, and that is peer pressure from online. And not it's not like the internet's telling me eat that donut, which, I mean, there are some great ads with food and some great advertisements that relate to fast food or whatever, but that's not what gets me so much. It's more so all of the different types, the overload of diets, and just so many people on the internet telling you how you should eat, and most of them are so different. I know when I've searched on Google different types of diets or how to lose weight or anything related to those things, a plethora of different answers plaster everywhere. And then, of course, I feel like when you do searching online, it creeps into your social media, and it's like every ad. So, for example, with that, I bought those Goli vitamins. I'll review those eventually someday. And because I bought those, every single ad on my Facebook now are Goli vitamins. And it's like, but anyway, there's this pressure of eating this way or eating that way, and it leaves someone wondering, well, how should I eat? Like, what is the healthiest way? And then eventually you try out a diet, or you try to take a little bit from all of them, which I do not recommend, because overall, with either method that you do, depending on who you are, you might become frustrated from trying to eat either a specific diet's way, or, like I said, you're trying to take parts from all the diets and think, oh, I can make a really healthy diet if I just take this from paleo and this one from keto and etc. But it doesn't work that way. So I think just over the years, I put a lot of faith, I think a lot of us put a lot of faith into the internet, and the internet supposedly knowing so much and knowing everything about everything. And the problem with something like this is there's too much information out there, and it just overwhelms someone that's just trying to find at least some basic starting information. So I would feel a lot of peer pressure from the internet, from going into this diet and that one and trying to stay strict, but then I couldn't. So then in turn, I felt like a failure because I couldn't do a diet when maybe that just wasn't the right diet for me, because different things work for everyone when you think about it. And I kind of think about Steph too, like the diet that Steph does now is carnivore diet, and it took her going through a couple other diets to figure out that the carnivore one is the best one for her. And for me, I still haven't figured out the best diet for me. The ones that I've tried so far, I've just struggled with, and maybe I just haven't found my diet yet. Maybe it's that one because I never tried that one before, who knows? But maybe it's something else because everyone's different. And then another tool that I want to mention too, speaking of online, another tool, I mentioned it very briefly in episode 4, the eating disorder episode, and that's BMI. I it's ironic because so I'm a psych student and BMI is in the DSM-5 for the various eating disorders. I personally, everyone can have different opinions on this, but I personally do not agree with BMI at all. I feel like it's a very inaccurate tool to measure someone's weight, to identify how much someone weighs. I want to say doctors use it as well. I haven't been to the doctor in quite a while, so I'm not sure if they still strictly go by a BMI, but I just feel like the problem with that is we look at the BMI, we could be somewhat of a decent weight, but the BMI doesn't take into account muscle. So then it just tells, we're told that we're overweight, that we're fat, and that just, we need to do better. So things like the BMI as well really messed me up in ways on how I should eat, and I think was just another cause to why some of the disordered eating started, because I felt very frazzled by everything. And I think when we kind of just crash and burn, it's kind of like when you're working at your job and you're working all these hours, especially for some people now who may be working double, triple, quadruple the hours that they normally work because of this crisis. It's just like overworking yourself so hard and you get so frazzled and just kind of crash and burn because you can't take anymore. This was kind of similar in a food sense to me, where I feel this pressure from trying all these things, and because they're not working, I just crash and burn, and it leads to the what I call the junk food black hole. And as I speak about online as well, I found this a little interesting. I actually found a study online at Ashton University. It was with a PhD student known as Lily Hawkins, and her supervisor was Dr. Jason Thomas. And they came up with this whole conclusion that if us, the individual, believes that our friends are eating healthier things like fruits and vegetables, that we're more likely to eat them ourselves, which I kind of disagree with a little bit. Kind of agree, kind of disagree. But then it also says if our friends are eating like real, like bad stuff, sugary drinks, just junk food, like stuff at the gas station, pretty much, like if they're eating that stuff more common, then we, the individual, feel like we have a license to overeat those foods that are bad for our health. And that I definitely agree with. Like, I definitely would fall into that. I think it's possible to go against that and still eat the healthier alternative that you want to eat and stick to that diet, but I can also empathize with just kind of going with the flow of what everyone else is eating and just going along with it, even if it's going to make you feel sick or bad about yourself. So those are some of the peer pressures that I felt behind my eating. Maybe you can relate to some of those yourself in your own personal life. And if you are able to seek help, seek therapy for eating disorder related behavior, I definitely recommend you go and do that. I personally have not done that myself, but maybe it's something that I should. And I do recommend it to you guys as well. So that is going to conclude today's episode. That will be episode 7. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank today's sponsor for sponsoring this episode. I want to thank Sakura HC for doing the intro music for season 1 episodes. And I also want to thank Tokyo Music Walker for doing the outro that you're going to hear after I am done with this. Be sure, I'm going to put some links in the episode description, link to my Instagram account, my Facebook account, maybe my Twitter. I don't know, Twitter's not doing so hot. My new YouTube account. Be on the lookout. I'm going to try to be making some weekly videos as well as the weekly podcast. but I'm also in the works of a book, which that's going to take a while though. But so we'll see how the videos go, but just be on the lookout for those just in case. I also started a new Patreon, so that would be some awesome help, and it has some awesome benefits that go along. If you end up joining as a patron, there'll be some cool little features that only you are going to get. And also on Facebook, I want to just mention quickly what's been growing is this little group I started called Community Guidance. If you want to join, you can message me about that or search Community Guidance. And it's a private group, so you could put in your request and I will approve it. But that group is all for if you need guidance in any type of experience moment that you're going through, you can privately post it in there, and other members will respectfully help guide you or help give you advice or relate or all of the above. And I like to post some inspirational things in there as well. I hope all of you guys have a great day, and I just want to say one more time, thank you so much for listening and letting me know what you think of the show. It means the world to me. All right, bye guys.